Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're an author or a self-publisher, you're probably already familiar with KDP and how important it is to get your book just right before hitting publish. But here's the thing, formatting your book for KDP can be a challenge, especially if you are not a graphic designer. But what if I told you you could actually use PowerPoint to format your KDP books and make it look professional without the steep learning curve of complex design tools? I'm Samantha with The Productive Posse, and today I'm going to show you how you can format your KDP books in PowerPoint. So, whether you're creating a simple cover, a professional interior layout, or both, PowerPoint is a fantastic tool you can use to create polished, print ready designs. Let's dive in. Why use PowerPoint for KDP? So, why PowerPoint? Well, let me tell you, PowerPoint is one of the most underrated tools when it comes to creating professional looking books. It's user friendly, it has a great control over text and image placement, and it allows you to customize every detail of your book layout. Plus, PowerPoint files can be easily exported as PDFs, which is exactly what KDP wants. If you're new to KDP or just starting out with book design, PowerPoint is a great starting point. You don't need to invest in expensive design software and you can still create high quality results. So, now that you understand why PowerPoint is such a tremendous tool to use when publishing books on KDP, we're now going to get to the actual formatting because this video is about formatting, right? So I'm going to open a PowerPoint document and I'm going to be starting the process from scratch. So when you're ready to create your publishing empire, you can actually go ahead and do so on your own. So I'm going to open up a new presentation, and typically this is what you will see once you open PowerPoint. Now, the first thing I'm going to determine is the trim size of my book. This demonstration will be for the book's interior. So once you've selected your book's trim size, then you'll better understand what it is you'll need to do to format what we're looking at here. So let's say, for example, I'm working a with a trim size of 7.5 by 9.25. So let's say I'm creating a standard composition notebook and there will be 100 pages and the lines across will be set to college ruled. Now, if you don't have an understanding of dimension or size, college ruled is typically 0.28 inches or 20.25 points. Once I've started demonstrating this, you'll have a greater understanding or appreciation for what this looks like. Now, when I'm creating books for KDP, I simply use their print setup file because it is easy to use and it really takes the guesswork out of designing books. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pull this up. Sorry, I just realized my PowerPoint was not up, so I'm just going to drag it to the screen I'm working on. So this is the PowerPoint document that I opened up. My apologies if you were not seeing it. Now, what I'm going to do is just to drag the print setup file I am going to be working with. Now, as you can see it, if you've never seen this before, This is an Excel file, and it is something that is editable. At least there are certain features about it that you can edit when you're working with it. If you need a copy of this, I can send it to you, but it is on Amazon's website. You just need to be searching and you'll find it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ensure that my ink and paper choice is selected, and it's always going to be black and white for what I'm doing because color is more expensive. So if you really don't need to use color, I would not use color for the interior. If it's necessary, by all means, go ahead. And that is going to be strictly dependent on the type of book you're creating. But I'm simply creating the interior for a basic or what you'd call a low content book. So I really do not need to use color for this because the return on investment is not going to be much. I will not be making any money from it if I use color. The trim size is going to be a 7.5 by 2.9 inches, and I will have 100 pages. So because I will have lines running across the book or across the edge of the book, I will need to ensure that my manuscript is done with bleed. So I'm going to select the manuscript with bleed option. And this is what the tool spits out. So when you're plugging or when you're adding the dimensions in PowerPoint, it is going to change. So it's no longer going to be the trim size. It is going to be the trim size with bleed. So the 9.25 inches is going to become 9.5 inches. And for the width, the 7.5 is now going to be 7.625 inches. And as you can see, the tool has made it pretty simple or easy to identify how much you need to allot to your bleed, the gutter, which is the inner margin, and the outside margins. So I highly recommend using this tool if you're just starting out with KDP. If you are someone who is already familiar with trim sizes, you really do not need to use this, but you can always go back to this. I always use this a part of my demonstration. So now that I know the trim size, I am going to start working on fixing this section, or at least aligning certain things on the screen so that once we're ready to actually flesh out the interior of the book, it is easy and we can work accurately and precisely. I'm going to show you how I do that in PowerPoint. So with PowerPoint open, you're going to go ahead and you are going to change the size of the manuscript. So to do this, you're going to access design. You're going to go to slide size, page setup, and then you're going to add the trim plus bleed size. And this is the information we got when we were using KDP's print setup. So we're going to plug that information in and then we start from there. So the width is 7.625 inches. The height is 9.5 inches. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click OK and I'm going to scale up. Now this is what the layout looks like. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to remove everything that is on my slide. Now, I usually work with a ruler, my guidelines, and my grid lines simply because it allows me to be accurate when I'm adding lines, margins, and that sort of stuff. Now, if you open your PowerPoint presentation and you're not seeing this information, simply access View and ensure that these boxes are all ticked. So ruler at the side, your grid lines, and your guides. This is something I also want you to bear in mind. Everything that is reflected here in the box is an inch. Everything within the box is an inch. But I'm going to narrow things down so that it's smaller. So it's easier for us to work with when we're adding our college ruled lines. Now to do this, I'm simply going to right click on my mouse and I'm going to choose grid and guides, and I'm going to add horizontal lines. Just a few. I'm going to add two. Well, I now have two horizontal lines, and that's okay. I'm going to add another vertical line, and I'll share with you what these will be used for shortly. I'm going to go back and I'm going to access grid options. Now this is where things get interesting. For the spacing, I am going to ensure that this is done at first. I'm probably going to use maybe half of an inch. So that's going to be 0.50. I'm going to select OK. And as you can see, the lines or the dots change. And once you start drawing or dragging the lines on a dot, you'll realize that it tells you where you are on the page. So if you should go back, you realize that this is 3.50 and this becomes 3. So the spacing is 0.50, half of an inch. Now what I'm going to do is to start dragging my guides just so that I can position my lines on the page. And this is just going to be the line that is within the gutter area or the inner margin when you open a composition notebook. So I'm going to set this to about an inch. I'm going to leave this at an inch, and I'm going to add an inch at the top, and I'm also going to add half of an inch at the bottom. Now there's something else that I'd like to do. I'm going to snap to grid. So this is going to snap to the closest grid that is there. And this is just because it's easier to work with. So you can set this to, going to make some more changes. Let's remove that. And I'm also, let's go back there, grid options. You can also change this further to be a quarter. See the lines change? So this is 70-25. So it shortens depending on what you're working with. So, but I'm just going to go back to a half. This is just for demonstration purposes. You can also set this to be an inch if you'd like. It's totally up to you, but I know for some books it's not so much. It's more of half of an inch. But if you want it to be maybe 0.75, then you could leave it there. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to drag this one to my outer margin. And this is just you formatting the interior. And I'll share with you soon why I'm doing this. Now, the next stage is to create spaces for my ruled lines. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to select grid options again. And I'm going to do this custom. So what I'm going to do is to change the lines to college ruled size. And this is going to be 0.28 inches. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select OK. And as you can see, the lines shorten. They are much closer together on the screen. So the next step is to actually start adding our lines onto this canvas. So to start adding lines to PowerPoint, I'm going to go to Insert and I'm going to insert a shape. I'm going to insert a line. I'm just going to drag this across the screen all the way. To see my line properly, I'm just going to remove my grid lines briefly. I'm going to re-add them once I'm done working with this. Now, the color here is blue. We do not want any color, as I've explained before. So it's usually best to use something like a gray. I try not to use black because it's too outstanding on the paper. So I usually opt for a gray shade. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ensure that this line is selected. I'm going to right click on my mouse and I'm going to go to Format Shape. This is just so that we can choose another color for the line. So currently it is set to blue. I'm going to use a gray shade. Let's see what this looks like. I'm going to lighten this a bit and I'm likely going to be sticking with this one. Or let's try something out, another shade out. I absolutely love this one, so I'm going to go with it. And you can also reduce the width or the strength of the line. So I'm going to set it to, for example, 1, which looks very pale. So you can just leave this at 1.25 points. So now that I have my line done, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to add back my grid lines. And we're going to start copying this. I'm just going to zoom in just so that it's easier to work with. And remember, this is where our first line starts. And that is why I had to add vertical and horizontal lines, because I want to ensure that I'm kept in the loop or I'm aware of where my margin starts and where I'm supposed to add each line. So this is the outer margin area. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to copy and paste this. And this is just me adding the lines, because this is the 0.28 space. So instead of starting the margin here, I am going to start from here. Because if I start it here, it is going to interrupt the flow of things. This spacing is going to be different from all other spaces on my journal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to ensure that Snap to Grid is selected, I find that it's easier to work with it that way. I'm going to ensure that both lines are selected, and I'm just going to copy and I'm going to paste, and I'm just going to drag them. That's it. And you can keep doing this until everything is populated. I'm going to zoom in a bit because it looks as though my lines are not solid. Let's check. Okay, they are. I think the dot was doing something to it. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to go back to what I was doing. Let's undo. We're almost done. Let's select 4 more. Oops. So this takes a bit of precision. Now, depending on the tool, well, some tools you're able to simply duplicate everything and it aligns perfectly. But you have to remember that a tool like PowerPoint was not designed specifically for book publishing. That is why Microsoft designed Microsoft Publisher. We're just using it to our advantage and we're making it work. That's it. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add my outer margin line. I'm simply going to this and I'm going to drag it to the side. And to get a straight line, I usually hold down on Shift. In some books, you will find that the line on the left is significantly brighter than all the other lines. And the line at the top as well. So we can do something similar. We can remove those. We can actually turn this into a black. Let's see what it looks like. Or we could just up the width. Yes, I think I'll do that. And that's it. Now I know on the side it looks pretty messy, but that is not how it's going to be printed. Just as how it appears to the left, this is what it's going to look like once the interior is done. So I usually don't worry about what is aligned to the side. I simply focus on what is within. Can keep the rulers. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to duplicate this. To make this easier, you can actually copy and paste this 100 times. So I usually just duplicate this until I have 100 slides. I'm almost at 70. I'm almost there. 100 pages. So what we're going to do is we're going to export this to see what it looks like, because we've not saved it as yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and save it. To 5. I'm just going to add it to my downloads. So now that it's saved, we won't have to worry about losing it. The next thing is to actually export this as a PDF. So I'm going to go to export, and I'm going to select the PDF option and choose the option that says best for printing. I'm going to export it. Where did I save it? I don't think I recall. In my downloads folder. So I'm just going to look for the file and we can check it out together. So this is what it looks like. This is the interior. This is what the interior looks like. And I'm pretty happy with the result. The next step is to create our cover design. Stay with me. So I am going to wrap this video up by sharing with you how you can create covers in PowerPoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ensure that I have a blank presentation opened. We are not using the presentation or the PowerPoint we were using to create the interior. We're going to create something different. I'm going to remove this, and now I am going to grab the dimensions for my book cover. Now that is going to be significantly different from what I was working with when I was creating the interior. Typically, I use a tool. I depend on a tool to help me calculate this, and this is Amazon's very own tool. So I'm just going to go ahead and I am going to pull that up so you have an idea of what it looks like. This is Amazon's cover calculator. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the binding type, which is paperback, so the cover is going to be soft. Hardcover books cost more money, and over the years we've seen where people tend not to buy those hardcovers because they are costly. So for cost purposes, just to keep it economical, we're going to use paperback. The interior type is going to be black and white. The paper type is going to be white paper. The reading direction is going to be left to right. So this is pretty much how the book is going to be opened and closed. The units, inches, the trim, it's going to be 7.5 by 9.25. And the page count, 100. We're going to go ahead and we're going to calculate those dimensions. And as you can see here, we have everything we need, but I find that it's also easier to download the template, and I'll share how you can use this later. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the dimension for the full cover of the width, and I'm going to go back to PowerPoint and I'm going to plug that in. I'm going to go to design, slide size, page setup. I'm going to add that there. Card. going to add that. I'm going to go back and I'm going to get the book's height, which is 9.5. Go back to PowerPoint. What's happening? Oops, sorry. Let's choose custom. And let's go back to grabbing this. So always ensure that custom is selected or else you're going to get an error. I'm going to click OK and I'm going to scale. So this is what it looks like. The next step is to bring in the template I downloaded from Amazon's cover calculator. So I'm going to go to Insert, Pictures, Picture from File, and this is it. I'm going to add the PNG version and I'm just going to scale this by dragging it to the rest of the presentation. And that's it. So this is going to be the front cover and this is the back. No, I do not have any design in mind. I'm simply going to wing it and hope that it comes out well. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go to View and I'm just going to add some lines. As I've mentioned before, it's best to use those because it's easier to work with. So I'm going to grab some lines. Let's add a vertical line first. And then I'm going to add a horizontal line. So let's pull this up. And I'm just going to go ahead. What's happening here? That's it. Properly positioned. And I'm just going to add these so I can differentiate my lines. Let's zoom in a bit. Oops. So what you need to bear in mind is that everything within the white space is the safe area. We do not want to go beyond. What I'm going to do is to lock this so that it doesn't move. It may well lock the lines as well. So let's unlock. All right, I'm also going to add 2 more lines. I'm going to add 2 more vertical lines. You'll see what I'm doing. Another vertical, and I'm going to drag it to this side. And the barcode. I think one of my lines went missing. Oops. Let's drag that into place. I'm going to create another horizontal line. I'm going to put it down. All right, I'm also going to insert a shape to represent the barcode, and this is just to let me know that is what is here. I'm just going to leave it as is, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to remove it from the top. And this is what we have working with. So everything in this space is going to be safe. So like I've mentioned before, I do not have a design in mind. I'm simply just going to work my way around this, but I'm going to get a color palette because I think that is going to help me just to design the color. I have a color palette in mind. I'm just going to start adding shapes. I'm not doing anything fancy. It is just for the sake of demonstrating how you can use a tool to create color, to create your covers. I'm going to right click and I'm going to format shape and I'm going to change the fill color. This is it. That's the color I want. So I'm going to remove the line on the outside, so it's going to be no line. And I'm just going to duplicate. I'm going to insert a text, and this is going to be called composition. Ensure that the color, apologies. This is going to be composition notebook, and I'm going to increase the size. Please ensure that the font you're using, you are allowed to do so. Mention you can also add lines to this. Let's change the color to black. I'm just going to copy this. So this is my cover design. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this cover design. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to export this and share with you what it looks like. best for printing. And let's open it up. This is my cover. This is going to be the spine area, the area that is bent. Once you get the book, there you have it, guys. Let me know what you think about this tutorial. Please leave a comment, please subscribe, and thank you so much for joining me. See you in the next video.